Welcome back to the deep dive. Today we're looking at something pretty fascinating, a real collision of old and new. Western Union, the original money transfer company, is planning to move its, massive multi-billion dollar flow onto the Solana blockchain.
Yeah, it's quite the headline.
It really is. And this isn't just some minor tech update. It feels much bigger. So our mission today is to really unpack this. What exactly is this US dollar payment token, or USDPT, and why Solana? Out of all the options, why that chain? And crucially, what does this huge shift mean for customers, for global finance, and yeah, for investors too?
It's definitely a striking pivot. Western Union, this is the company that literally helped wire the American West with telegraphs, right? And now they're trying to wire the whole world digitally using a public ledger. It's kind of incredible. They've been this fundamental intermediary for, generations. Immigrants, workers, sending money home. And now it looks like they're trying to sort of disintermediate themselves by using stablecoins. The sources we've seen suggest this isn't just a small test like a pilot program. No, it's framed as a strategic move, a modernization that could make WU pretty much overnight one of Solana's biggest users by sheer volume.
Okay, so let's get into the why, the motivation. Let's start with the problem they're trying to solve. It's that age-old issue, isn't it? International money transfers, remittances, we know they're slow, but the costs are really something else, and that seems to be the main target here.
Oh, absolutely. The data is pretty stark. Globally, the average fee is still around 6.5%, 6.5%.
Well, still that high.
Yeah. And then 6.5%, it's not just pure profit for Western Union or whoever. A lot of it was just, friction, systemic friction.
Right. That's a key point we need to make clear for you listening. That 6.5% doesn't all go into one pocket. So where does that friction actually come from?
Well, it's spread out. You've got fees from correspondent banks, the ones that actually help settle the money across borders. Then there's the cost of managing foreign exchange risk, the FX risk, because money often sits in limbo for days.
Days, yeah.
Waiting to settle. And then you have W's own internal processing compliance costs. It adds up. And yeah, that settlement delay taking a few days ties up a lot of capital. The stablecoin idea, it's aiming to basically slash those bank fees and the FX risk delays, maybe eliminate them.
Okay, so let's talk about the benefit for Western Union itself. This seems huge, working capital. If money takes, say, 3 days to cross borders, and they're doing this globally, across 150 countries, hundreds of thousands of agents, that must mean billions of dollars are just stuck in transit at any given time. How does USDPT fix that?
Exactly. By using something like Solana, where settlement is almost instant.
Seconds, right.
Seconds, yeah. They dramatically cut down how long that capital is locked up. Think about it. If W moves, say, $50 million a day, and it's tied up for 3 days, that's $150 million in working capital they can't touch. If settlement becomes instant, boom, that capital is free immediately. That can save them tens of millions a year just in financing costs for that tied up capital.
Okay, that's not just tweaking things. That really changes their whole internal financial structure, their balance sheet.
Precisely. It's a fundamental efficiency gain.
Yeah.
And that leads right into the second big win for them, unit economics. Having their own stablecoin gives WU much more control over the whole process. Treasury management, liquidity, making sure things work smoothly with digital wallets across borders. By cutting out those expensive intermediary banks, your cost for each transfer could drop from percentage point.
Down to fractions of a cent.
Exactly. Fractions of a cent.
So even if they dramatically cut the price for you, the customer says, drop that 6.5% fee way down to maybe 1% to compete really hard, they still make more profit on each transfer because their own costs have plummeted.
That's the idea. A win-win. They can offer much lower prices, instant transfers, better customer experience, and at the same time boost their own margins. Solves the legacy cost problem and the customer experience problem together.
Okay, so the why is clear. Cut friction, free up capital, improve the economics. But why Solana? Why this specific blockchain? The problem demands low cost, low latency speed at a huge scale. The sources are calling Solana the ideal choice. But let's be honest, Solana has had its share of hiccups, right? Stability issues in the past.
That's a really important point. We definitely can't ignore the past outages and the reliability questions people had. But Western Union is clearly making a bet on where Solana is now. The chain's performance, its stability, its capacity, it's improved a lot over the last year or so. They seem to be looking at the core requirements for a high-frequency payment system. And right now, on those metrics, Solana looks, hard to beat.
Okay, so what are those core metrics that make them willing to overlook the past risks?
Speed and cost. Plain and simple. Solana's base fee, It's tiny, something like 0.00000005 SOL.
Which translates to.
In real money, especially at WU scale, it's a fraction of a US cent per transaction, almost nothing. That's a massive difference compared to traditional banking fees when you're moving billions. And the speed, international transfers finalized in just a few seconds.
A few seconds.
Yeah, that's the snappy settlement time that solves that whole capital stuck in limbo problem we talked about.
Right, so it's moving from paying hefty fees to legacy banks to paying virtually nothing on a public ledger. But let's clarify this token, USDPT. Is it just another stablecoin like, say, USDC or Tether, or is it different? And what about the regulatory side?
Good question. The details are still emerging. Launch is planned for 2026. But thinking is, USDPT will likely be a fully reserved stablecoin, but managed internally by Western Union. It's built specifically for their settlement needs. So, unlike something like USDC, it might be a permissioned stablecoin.
Ah, permissioned, meaning what exactly?
When Western Union can control who can actually hold or transact with it. This allows them to enforce strict anti-money laundering and know your customer rules globally, AML/KYC.
Okay, that makes total sense from their perspective. They need the blockchain speed and low cost, but they absolutely have to stay compliant with regulations in, 150 different countries?
Exactly.
So a permission token lets them get the best of both worlds. Fast, cheap settlement, but only between vetted parties, like their own agents or approved digital wallets.
Precisely.
Yeah.
And they're not entirely going it alone here. The sources mention other big payment companies are already experimenting with stablecoin settlement on Solana. So there's a developing operational playbook, you could say, for handling these kinds of high-volume global flows on Solana. They're building on infrastructure that's being tested and proven, just adapting it for their massive scale.
So the calculation is, Solana is fast, it's incredibly cheap, and crucially, it seems to be finally mature and stable enough to handle their global workload, even if they need to put their own permissioned USDPT layer on top for control and compliance.
That seems to be the bet they're making.
All right, let's talk scale, because this is what really makes this story stand out, I think. Western Union isn't just moving some small side project onto the blockchain. They're talking about integrating this into their huge existing global network, over 150 countries, hundreds of thousands of agent
The
locations.
volume is just mind-boggling, really. In their fiscal year 2024, Western Union processed $102.9 billion.
Billion with a B.
Billion with a B. In principle, moved across borders. That's the volume we're potentially talking about migrating onto Solana.
$102.9 billion. It's hard to even wrap your head around that number. That's bigger than the GDP of quite a few countries. And the idea is that potentially all of that volume could shift to being settled via USDPT on Solana in the next few years. That sounds incredibly ambitious.
It is ambitious, and that's where we need to think critically. WU isn't operating in a bubble. They've got competitors. Existing solutions like Ripple's corridors, the traditional banks trying to modernize, Swift's own projects for better interoperability. So why build their own stablecoin rail on Solana instead of using one of those?
It sounds like they think the cost savings are just fundamentally better this way. By having their own dedicated token, USDPT, and using Solana's near-zero fees, maybe they see a path to lower costs than paying transaction fees on other networks.
That seems to be the core bet. They believe the only way to get that true industrial-scale improvement in unit economics is to go with a public, high-speed chain like Solana and manage the liquidity themselves with USDPT. It almost signals a lack of confidence that the traditional players, or even other crypto-based solutions, can deliver the speed and cost savings they need to really compete going forward in digital remittances.
Okay, but what about the risks? Are there potential roadblocks? Anything suggesting pushback internally or maybe regulatory hurdles that could mess with that 2026 timeline for full migration?
Well, besides the technical stability, which you always have to keep an eye on with any chain operating at this scale, the biggest hurdle is probably compliance harmonization. Getting regulatory approval for a brand new global settlement token across dozens of different countries, each with its own rules, that's a massive undertaking.
Yeah, I can imagine.
The 2026 target is definitely ambitious. It suggests they're pretty confident they can get the green light in their major markets first and then roll it out. But yeah, any significant delay in a key country could definitely slow things down.
Okay, so assuming this goes ahead, even if it's phased, what does this huge, consistent flow of money mean for Solana itself and for someone, holding SOL? It's more than just a quick price jump, right?
Oh, absolutely. This isn't about a one-day pump. This is about long-term entrenchment. If even a decent chunk of that $100 billion plus starts flowing through Solana annually, Solana basically cements itself as a go-to layer for high-frequency, low-value transfers. We're talking industrial, real-world utility, not just DeFi or NFTs.
And that kind of utility drives real network effects, doesn't it?
Exactly. More volume means more fees generated for the network, more demand for SOL to pay those tiny fees. More importantly, having a giant like Western Union successfully using the chain validates it for everyone else. It encourages more wallets, more merchants, more apps to integrate with Solana. It builds confidence, and that can lift the long-term demand for SOL based on actual usage, not just speculation.
So it's strong validation.
It's huge validation. It shows Solana can potentially handle the kind of load a global financial institution throws at it. It provides a pretty convincing answer to that big question. Can these public blockchains really handle the volume of traditional finance? Western Union is essentially saying, yes, we think this one can.
Right. Okay, let's wrap this up.
So to kind of bring it all together, this partnership or this move by Western Union, it really is a real vote of confidence in Solana's ability to handle serious everyday payments at scale. And for Western Union, it offers a credible way forward, a path to modernize and tackle those crippling legacy costs.
Yeah.
So yeah, the sources are pretty clear. It's seen as bullish for both. For W trying to reinvent itself and definitely for Solana's future, especially Solana.
Yeah, the key takeaway for me is seeing how these financial giants are absolutely forced to chase speed and lower costs to stay relevant. And for you listening, it really highlights where serious institutional money is placing its bets for the future on infrastructure that promises massive volume for almost no cost, pennies or fractions of pennies. Okay, so here's our final thought for you to mull over. If Western Union, one of the oldest, most established names in global money transfer, is seriously planning to move its entire multi-billion-dollar flow onto a public blockchain, specifically to cut out costs from traditional banks, what does that really signal about the future? How necessary will those traditional banking intermediaries be for cross-border payments down the road? Could this move force the big global banks to adopt similar public ledger strategies themselves, or do they risk getting bypassed entirely by companies like Western Union finding a cheaper, faster way? Something to think about. Thanks for diving deep with us today.